All right. Welcome to Unstuck and Alive. We're here with Charlie Lima, founder of Boom Fit in College Station, triathlete, Ironman athlete, super athlete. He is a gym owner. He runs the biggest CrossFit competition in Texas. He's a stud. He's an awesome dude. Look at that smile. Charlie Lima, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on, dude.
Todd, thank you, man. What an intro. Appreciate it.
You got it. Hey, let's jump into your story, man. I've sat on a mountain and heard you talk about life and life with Jesus, and that's been several years back. So I'm excited to jump back in and just hear. So tell us kind of how you've gotten to where you are today, and then we'll dive down into different areas.
Well, if you remember, I'm a little long-winded. So anytime we had
Hey, hey, dude, I'll nenever forget. One bottle, second bottle, then I had a can
yeah,
next to me, and
you're throwing it at me. It's like you
hey,
can't shut this guy up. No, but
uh,
yeah, man,
I love it.
that's a big question. So maybe I'll just pick it up from like that trip was almost 10 years ago.
I know, dude.
Yeah, but how'd I get where I am? So I'm 43. I actually turned 44 on Monday.
Come
So
on.
this is the end of my 43rd year, and I got into working out my senior year of high school. It kind of took over my life. I was really unhealthy, even though I wouldn't have necessarily looked at myself that way. I just ate a lot of junk food, and I didn't like working out. And
Yeah.
when you do that combo, you end up overweight. And so I was a senior, and I played sports throughout high school, so that kind of maybe did a little bit of management until it didn't anymore. So I got into working out, and I got into working out so much that it kind of turned into my career. And that's what led me to start personal training. And then I started my gym. And then around that time is when I met my now wife, Alicia. She was actually working at a place next door to where I started out personal training. And so we got married in 2009. We have 4 kids. So I had my daughter in 2012, and then boys in 15, 17, and 19. And, I just would say that today, I always say that the pillars of my life, the things that basically are, I call them like my favorite things to do, but also the things that really define me are my family, my fitness, and my faith. And so those are the expressions of everything. And so to me, like the gym is just an expression of those things, right? I love, and they all have a very different influence in my life because they come together really well, like in the gym, right? That's kind of where even the event, it's like a big celebration of that. But you see them every day in my life, and so for me, that those are anchors. Those are things that we'll say if Chat GPT was observing me, it would basically spit that out as
Yeah.
like, okay, these are the things this guy's all about. So
Yeah.
yeah, my family means the world to me. They're everything. Fitness is like my biggest passion on the planet, and the faith is like the anchor of the thing that makes me capable of navigating the highs and lows and the bigger meaning in the if I'm honest, the humility and moral compass that I carry, right? And so because apart from that, then that I don't really feel like those things would be anchors for me.
Yeah. It's good. You mentioned the event. Talk to us about the BCS Classic. When did it start? Why did it start? Kind of what have you seen that evolve into?
Yeah, it's actually crazy because what it is today, it's its own thing. Like it's like become it's really not about me. I'm kind of the person that shepherds it, right? So 2010, I go to Austin, Texas, and compete at what was at the time called sectionals, which is the precursor to the CrossFit Games. So it was like, if you want to go to the CrossFit Games, you do competition one, which was sectionals, competition two, which is regionals, competition three is the games. So I went to sectionals in Austin. I had a blast. I barely made it. They took the top 30 and I got 27th. And when I came home, this was like early March, and the regionals was end of May. And I really wanted to bring back something like that to College Station. And I threw it together. May 1st was the event. So think of March, whatever to May. And there was only two other gyms in town. I got them involved, and we had 81 participants at a community Lincoln. It was called the Lincoln Center, but think of like a recreational, not even nice. Like this is a community center, like a park. And the person that was running that Lincoln Center, his name was Mr. Lance. He gave me permission to use the space. At the time, my wife was doing after school programs with some kids that were from the after school programs were part of her classroom because she was teaching Head Start, which is typically a demographic that the Lincoln Center would always have at their centers. And so 81 participants, there's a video on YouTube. It's actually really funny because everybody's wearing the clothes that you were wearing in 2010 doing CrossFit, and so the shoes, all of it, man.
Yeah.
It was, so we came back, did it again. And we were at the Lincoln Center for 4 years, and it got a little bigger, but not significantly. Like the fourth year, I think we had 120 people. And I remember the fourth year because we had a rig, which was a big deal. So we had a company, their name was Triton. They might still be around. And they provided us a 10-lane rig. Somehow, I don't know how we got it. And I mean, we were hauling equipment from my gym in trucks, like a lot of, back and forth just to put this thing on. And, the DJ was a strong word. It was like speakers with a radio. And it was just very bootstrap, very grassroots, CrossFit, at its core. And then 2014, so year 5, we went to the NutriBolt facility that was brand new. One of my clients just built that building. He owned the company. And so we got to basically just put this event on at a nice new place.
Yeah.
We were there for 5 years. And then NutriBolt was moving to Austin. And so I needed to find a new venue. By this point, we're probably at like 320 participants. And so I needed a space big enough that I could house that many people. And I went to the Equine Center at Texas A&M. And obviously I'm an Aggie, so I'm like, man, I want to keep it. And the Equine Center was amazing. And it looked perfect. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
But it was like me, big vision, big dreams, walking around, of course, not considering the cost at all. And just signed up to have it there. Basically, there was one lady, she's sweet. Her name's Laura, who was helping us. But apart from that, they had no staff. They had no team. So like anything we did there, we had to do. And that was the year that Rich Froning came. So that was kind of a big year because, and also at that time, 2019, Rich had already won the CrossFit Games individually. He had already won the team. But Mayhem as a brand, he's put a lot more since that year in the last 5-6 years into building this, army of whatever they are, right? Gym programming, athlete programming. His personal brand is even bigger. And so I remember he came, and it was actually funny because he posted one time on his social media. And it was because he was on the flight home on United. I mean, literally, he flew in that morning and flew out that night. And he put like a picture of them showing college football. And it was like United for the win. And like now, his social media account's huge. He's very, he or his team is very strategic about everything that they do. And but the only reason I wanted to bring him in was to share his testimony because he, again, that year I kind of transitioned the event from being just a CrossFit competition to a family fitness faith festival.
Yeah.
And really, my idea, or what I thought I wanted that to become, was like a panel of speakers. And I even had, maybe nobody remembers this, but I had like Bruce Matthews, who was a Hall of Fame offensive lineman from the Houston Oilers. His son lived in College Station at the time and worked out at my gym. And I got Bruce Matthews, who's a very strong believer and somebody who has a very strong testimony. He came and shared his testimony, So I had like 7 or 8 speakers,
Yeah.
a lot
And
of.
is that about the time your son was born?
That was the year he was born, and that
Okay.
was a combination of what shifted me in that direction for the
Yeah.
for the event. Was he was born in February, life flighted to Texas Children's
Yep.
Hospital. We were there for 3 weeks.
Yep.
Came home. We were home for a week, and then life flighted back to Texas Children's Hospital. And in that season, and you probably speak to this a lot, not only in this podcast, but maybe even on the trail, it's when these times come that are very challenging, trialish, frustrating, or that you start maybe hearing God clear, maybe having a little bit more desire to hear from Him, maybe questioning Him. Let's just like call it like that's when that line or channel becomes like very, and it's not necessarily always good. It's not like you're always going to hear good things or you're always going to feel good things. And I think in that season, one, it was such a spiritual experience for me because when he was born at 4:42 a.m. and basically looked perfectly normal, and we've had 3 kids before this, so I know what they look like, and I'm pretty familiar with that. It's not like my first child. And within 15 minutes, 10 minutes, they want to take them to the NICU to check on him, and it's kind of odd. But I told my wife, I'm like, we're fine. Like she held him.
Yep.
I'll go. We'll be right back, basically. And I go in that room, and within 3 hours, the doctor, Dr. Getty, basically said things aren't looking good. Prepare you for the worst. He's probably not going to make it. And dude, you literally now I'm exposed because the person who I in that moment think can do anything tells me he can't do anything.
Yeah.
And that I say I'm exposed because it just showed like if like call it fear, call it worry, call it panic, call it anxiety, call it whatever you want to call it. But I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was distraught. I had no response. And then that was around 7:45. Alicia, who had an epidural, and typically she's had them before, you can't walk. Dude, she walked to the room, or she walked. And now her and I are literally looking at her son. He's purple and blue and he's got things all over him. And, we're praying. My pastor calls. He prayed for us. And it was like even there's, a couple people that we still know who were in that room. I mean, nurses
Mm.
and
Yeah.
just picture the room, right? Just the feeling of despair. And all of a sudden, like whether it was a prayer, a thought, whatever it was, I remember vividly, my prayer personally that I said out loud to God was, if you save him, I'll give you everything. That was my words. Like, and it was interesting because 3 weeks at Texas Children's, you kind of think about a lot of things because you're there, and obviously every day is a new day. And if anybody's ever had a baby in the NICU, they call it like a roller coaster because you get good news and you get bad news and you get good news. And so one of the things I thought about was that prayer, because obviously it's like at the time I would have said, hey, I'm giving God everything I have to give, but obviously I had more to give. And so for
Yeah.
me, it was just a cry for help, really. That's what the audible prayer was. And then within a short period of time, by 8:15, his oxygen that had got down to 48 started climbing, and basically, I looked at the doctor, the same one that told me he's probably not going to make it. And he looked, I would say, like he was feeling, I could just sense, okay, something's different. And I go, is he gonna be okay? He goes, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll never forget his words.
Mm.
And literally, that's all I needed, man. I really felt like in that moment, I'm like, wow. And then kangaroo team from Texas Children shows up. They start basically disassembling, reassembling, doing all this stuff. And next thing you know, my son Ames and Alicia on an airplane because they could only take one person. So she got on the plane, life flighted Texas Children's. I'm in my truck driving on, 290, just literally going. And by the time we got there at 4 o'clock, he was on the 17th floor, which is the cardiovascular ICU at Texas Children's Hospital. They thought it was a heart issue. And I remember being in that room at like 5:30. We had a bunch of people in the waiting room. And I remember telling Alicia right at 4:42, basically 5 p.m., I was like, praise God, he's been alive 12 hours. Like I've
Uh,
never praised God for my child being alive 12 hours before that. And any of the, like
yeah.
just for him to have been alive at the 12-hour mark was, and so all that to say,
Mm.
coming out of that, going back to the initial BCS Classic, like,
Yeah.
man, that next 3 months, let's just call it that. Like I had 3 kids at home. One of them was, you know, by when Ames was born, Chip was like 21 months. So almost 2. I had another one that was like almost 4, and then a daughter that was like 6.5. And so you add that, I own a gym that I didn't literally go to for a month. All this, you start really analyzing like things that I should be doing and stop doing. And, like let's call it, not that I had anything like this, but it was like, let's say it's a Tuesday Rudy's lunch. Well, I'm not doing that right now, or, so you start filtering. And I had to, well, obviously I got to work. So I had the gym I have to do, right? Like I needed to well, the BCS Classic, I started pondering that because all this time, like I'm not doing anything and I'm usually gearing up for the event around this springtime, like registration, sponsorships, all the things. And finally I decided like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like it complements the gym. It's not, and this has nothing to do with Ames. It just has to do with like, what should you be spending your time with and what should you not be spending your time with is the bigger question. Well, in that whole time, going back to just like being in tune a little bit more with the spirit and just, I felt God leaning me towards like, hey, instead of it just being a CrossFit competition, let's take it in this direction of a family fitness faith festival. Well, and all that to say, as my like wheels start turning, I was like, man, I would love it because I started thinking, oh, worship music, speakers, like kids zone, like Ninja Warrior course, like we had a bunch of, and I said, dude, if we got Rich Froning here, like he's like the guy, right? And so that began, and again, I have a friend who happened to say, who I know very well, and he said, hey, if you want Rich, contact this guy. Well, again, I'm Charlie down in College Station putting on this competition that's not as big as it is today, but it's not tiny. And I talked to the guy, not Rich, the guy that you needed to contact, and I'm sharing with him exactly like I'm sharing with you, and he's like, all right, let me throw it to let me see if Rich would be interested. But it sounds like something he'd want to do. And so next thing you know, dude, he says, yeah. And then he was like, yeah, you got a contract? I'm like, sure. And I don't have a contract. And I put together something. I asked my friend who's kind of had different things like that before. So sent him over and then he sent it back signed like 1st of July. And then like 2 weeks later, like mid-July, me and Alicia are actually driving out to one of our friends that used to work for me has like a lake house, and we were doing like a coach's retreat or something out there. And And I get a text from the guy that was my contact with Rich. And he said, hey, Rich said that if somebody needs a partner, he'll compete. My heart about stopped. And I'm like, holy cow. Because all I wanted to bring him for was like, hey, like just speak. And he didn't want it. He doesn't necessarily speak. So he was like, I'll do a Q&A. So I was like, great, we'll fly you in, we'll fly you out, just Q&A, and like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Now he's going to spend the whole day and he's going to participate. So then I started talking to this guy. He's like, man, and here's some ways that some people have done it before. And so immediately I told my wife, I said, we're in the car. And I said, hey, babe. So first of all, Rich Froning is talking about competing. And I think we can raise a lot of money for, an organization. I go, who do you think we should do it for? And immediately she said Ronald McDonald House, because we stayed at the Ronald McDonald House with Ames. And I was like, great. So then we basically announced the fundraiser opportunity, and within a month raised $27,000.
Awesome. Yeah.
And that's when John competed with Rich. And that was I would call it the beginning of like this new era of BCS Classic, because it included Rich. So it's like before that, it didn't. And Rich has been a phenomenal part of the event. He and his whole team at Mayhem. And obviously I've grown real close to those guys and working. I always say it's not because of them that the event runs and is what it is, because we would do it even if Rich said, hey, I can't make it this year, or I want to stop coming. But it just makes it that much better to have him a part of it. And they're so great to work with, and it adds something. And I think that's where like the community, the BCS Classic community, has kind of aligned really well with the values of the event. And, I've worked on different ways to infuse that into the event. And sometimes like I've learned, like take, for example, 2019, like I don't have a panel of speakers anymore. I don't have the same vision that I had then, because at the core, we're a CrossFit competition. So it's like, we're not a Christian concert, or we're not. So, I was thinking one year, I was like, man, I want to bring, like Christian rapper, and like, I wanted to get that year that song came out. It's drawing my blank. The one, the big group out of the Carrie Job, and you would, everybody would know it. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I wanted to get them live to sing the song, and so again, but that's not why people are there.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of just understanding the lane that we're in. We're a fitness competition, but it's like the gym. Like we're a gym. We're not a church. It's like people are there to work out, but you can still have the family and the faith infused in, and for me, it's just, I don't know any other way to do it. Right. This is just how I am, and so, so that was 2019. We had 480 participants that year. And then 2020 was COVID, and we almost didn't have the event, but we did, but we had to limit it. So we did 400. So we had no spectators, just athletes. We were like one of the only competitions that year. And then came back, and basically since 21, like we peaked 24 with 1,100 athletes.
Wow.
And then I realized that, at some point more is not better. And for us to run the heats, for us to have the judges, for us to have everything, equipment, and to produce what I want to produce, the sweet spot's 1,000. And so last year we had 1,000. We introduced the online qualifier, which was in 2023. 3, 4, 5. This will be our 4th year. The qualifier was really something that other competitions do, but I wanted people to be in the right divisions. So basically it was a way for Todd to not go scaled, so if you signed up for scaled, I couldn't necessarily say, hey, you're not a scaled athlete. but technically it's like, if you do the qualifier, well, maybe you're an intermediate athlete, or so it better places people. Well, we take 100% of the registration and we give it to Mayhem Mission. And I went on one of their mission trips
Awesome.
last year. And so just kind of seeing in the front line what they do, and they really do a great, service to the global and domestic.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to give them about 100 grand, and then
Come on,
Ron McDonald like 175,000,
dude.
and all while not hurting the event, because
Yeah.
that's always the hard part, right? It's like, if you're giving more than you're actually, if you give more and then you hurt your own personal finances, it's not effective.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Man, something. So I think a couple things that you've been touching on, the intersection of those things, of faith and family and fitness, and for you it's fitness, which is personal, but it's also professional. But man, I think the people that listen to this, they're trying to navigate those three things, personal, professional, spiritual. Like, how do I get after all three of them at the same time? It seems like, when we pull one lever, the others go down. If we want to get after our work life, then it's like our family life suffers, or we feel like we can't have a spiritual life. And as long as I've known you, you pursue those three things, and you do it, at full capacity. Everything you do, you go for something great, whether it's a BCS Classic, whether it's, being an Ironman, whether it's the gym. And I've worked out at your gym, and it's a fantastic place, facilities, community, just awesome. How have you, when you run after things, you're going to find your limits too. Like, how have you found places where you overdid it, or you found yourself stuck? And what goes on mentally in those times, and how do you find your way through it?
Okay, so I want to understand the question. So the personal, professional, and what was the third bucket?
Spiritual.
Okay, it's spiritual. And is
Yeah,
the
for you, you
question?
said you
Yeah,
said faith, family, fitness.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So is there a question associated with that, or?
No, just
Oh,
as
okay,
you're running after those three things
gotcha.
and running after them hard, where have you found your limits? Where have you felt like, you've gotten overextended, found yourself stuck, and how did you work your way through it?
Yeah, I think stuck is, you can get stuck a few different ways. I would say, probably the most common form of that I feel like I've gotten stuck in as a business owner is financially, right? Like that's where I've kept hitting a moment where it's like either I overextended and I overstretched, and I shared a lot about this in the trail when we went to Colorado, but it's like my vision is so big,
Mhm.
my desire is so high, my I want to, and this could also go like even internally, like buying a home. Like I want to go so much that it ends up feeling like, because the finances, regardless if you make, $100,000 a year or $1 million a year, you can still keep hitting the wall, right? And so I think that's a place that I would say is easy to get stuck, right? In being an entrepreneur, because entrepreneur, number one, they are an entrepreneur because they believe that they can achieve unlimited potential. Like that's like nobody is an entrepreneur who says like it's going to be this, I'm going to have this small thing and it's going to no, like you become an entrepreneur because you have a vision and an expression of that that's so grand that, well, reality will hit you, right? It will, and that's why we grow at the rate that we grow based on how we handle that. So that's been a stuck area. I think family, and I don't know if this was part of the question, I think family, you can get stuck because I guess the three core areas, faith, family, fitness. Family, you get stuck is like, man, when we added more kids, man, it's like I do not want to be 35 or 38 or 40 again. Like, if you gave me $100,000 to go back, and I don't want to do it, like I would, because those were challenging years for all the reasons that you might think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can get stuck there. I think spiritually, you can get stuck because, I would say, like for me, I'm living in a season right now where it's like I am trying to come outside of the box that I've put God in for the majority of, we'll call it my walk with Him. The box is cozy, man. It's like, in the box, everything. Like, but I believe that there's more outside of the box, that He's bigger than that box, right? And so that's kind of stuck, because now it's like, oh, what does that even mean? Like, you start really analyzing even what you saw in the box so clearly is not it, and so I think in your fitness, the stuck might apply for some people. I fortunately, I mean, like, I think it's like I've become very aware of my health and fitness to the point where it's like, maybe if there's one area that I don't necessarily, I mean, maybe you get stuck because maybe you're not as consistent. But like for me, like, I feel like since I started, like, there's probably stuck places along that journey, but I've been very consistent, let's just say. So, I'm not out there winning Ironmans. I'm not out there uh, beating Todd in workouts, but I'm consistent. And so,
Oh, you would crush me, bro.
so
Mm.
I don't know if that answers your
Yeah,
question.
speak more on, you were talking about spiritually, like you feel like you've had God in a box and you're starting to think outside of that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I feel like the traditional, call it Christian or Western Christian mentality, right? It's like, accept Christ, read your Bible, tithe, be in a small group, read Christian books, pray, like, and just do that as many rounds as possible in your lifetime, and you've basically figured it out. And to me, I'm like, this can't be it, bro. Like, God is so much bigger than what we here think it is, and what
Yeah.
even the church on Sunday thinks it is. And this place has been around a lot longer than we've even recognized it to be. And God created it all. So it's like we just feel cozy in our little box. I say we, me. And it's like a lot of times it's like you don't want to go outside of that, because you might get answers that you don't necessarily
Sure.
like, or you might
Sure.
come across. So for me, it's like, and I'm by no means the teacher in this subject, right? But I feel like I'm starting to come into a place where I'm asking those questions. I am curious in those ways. And by no means, I don't, I've heard of this term deconstruction. That's not what I'm doing, because there's no loss of faith and there's no
Yeah.
lack of belief in this process. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So to be clear, because I think sometimes that can be confusing, there's an undeniable conviction associated with my belief in Him,
Mm-hmm.
and my desire to know Him.
Yeah.
And so it's not rebellion. It's
Yeah.
actually like, it's funny. I went on this men's retreat I just told you about last year. And one of the exercises they did is like the wheel of life. So everybody's done a version, or career, health, spirituality. And this is a non-faith based thing, right? And so family, like, 1 to 10, where are you at? If you're here and you're here and you're here, the wheel's not going. And this was just for the sake of having these men around. And one of the things I said, I'm like, spirituality, right? That was the one that I was talking on. And for me, I was answering in the small group. And I was like, 1 to 10, I feel like I'm a 4. I said, I feel like I'm a real 4. whereas I used to be a fake 9. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like if I'm
totally.
si- if I'm at Way Forward
Yeah.
3 years ago, if we did the same thing, I'd be like 9. Or 4 years ago, 9. Well, I feel like I'm a real 4. It's funny because this year we did the same thing. I'm like, I feel like I'm a 6. So it's like I'm getting a little more toward, but I think so many times, like, you know, we want to feel like we have that part figured
Yeah.
out. There's an aspect of not having it figured out that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Dude, that's good. You made the statement of like, is this all there is? And I think that statement is made internally by way more folks than those that have the courage to say it externally. And when you look at stuff, on the outside, it's like, dude, you have so much together. Like you've got a thriving business. Like just talked about, the BCS Classic started out as a dream, and then it's like now it's this massive thing. You're cutting off at 1,000 people. Like it's not like you're wandering around, not finding success. It's more of that you're finding success, professionally, but there's something going on that, like, when we read scripture, when we look at the intersection of our spiritual life, we wonder, like, is this all there is? It seems like there should be more. And I think
Mm.
that's a courageous question to step into. uh, what if you'll go a little deeper, like, what are you finding? Like, what are you discovering that is there that you haven't seen before?
This might, maybe if I talk through it, I'll get to that answer. But I think one thing is it's definitely not judgment,
Yeah.
and it's not assumption. And, even prior to this particular season of that question or that journey, I was never, or never is a strong word. I was not about judging or assuming, right? So I never liked making the assumption if somebody was like, they're a Christian, or like placing some stereotype on someone, or they're not a believer. It's not so much like I can call you like not fit and I can call you fit, but it's like the heart behind the statement is what I mean, right? Like if I came into a room and I'm like, well, these people are healthy and these people are unhealthy. Like I am essentially defining health by my standard, and
Yeah.
I personally do not like that. So my discovery is like, that's a very, like, I would say part of the discovery is like, if you're doing that, you're still in that box, right? And here I am kind of labeling people, but if you, in my opinion, that's what you do in the box because it makes you feel good, because you want to. Another thing that I'm finding is like, you know like, I'm not saying this any other way than factually, but I was reading scripture every day for a lot of years. I was doing the Bible in a year multiple times, and part of this, we'll call it transition, is like I freed myself from the
Yeah.
obligatory nature of that. It's not a, I got to do this thing. If I'm not doing this thing, then I'm not something. That's like, it's so far from that.
Yeah.
And there's elements to that, right? So I would say, off the top of my mind, that's probably a couple areas.
How's it impacting the way that you raise your kids, the way that you love your bride, the way you run your business?
um, my kids are raised in a home. This is kind of one of the big things. They're at a private Christian school for until a year ago, 2 years ago, and so they're kind of raised in that like box mentality. And like I sent my daughter a text when I was in Colorado. I read a book. At the end of the book was the verse something 117, and I looked it up. And it was like, all good gifts come from the Father in heaven, who gives the gifts, right? And so I sent it to her and I said, you are a gift from heaven, like, I love you. And we pray for them every night. And the I want to not force them into anything. That's probably the more, like, I don't want to over emphasize the faith in my life and the relationship I have with God, but I also I want them to express it and live it and authentically feel it if they do. You know what I mean? And so that wasn't the reason we had them come out of the private Christian school. But I think the way it's influencing that is because I want them, like, I want it to be theirs, right? I don't want it to be mine. But I also am not hiding it. It's not like I'm not clear, and they're being raised in an environment. We go to church on Sunday. So, of course, the boys, like, they just go play and at church, and they, my daughter, she's going to a lot of youth groups, and she's a little older. So it's like, you know, it's so outside of my ability to necessarily know what their path is going to be. But it is, one thing is, I'm not forcing them to do any of it. I'm not forcing them to, pursue that, because I believe that it will be more authentic if it's their path.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to, answer. My daughter wanted a Bible the other day. And, I think you've heard of personality profiles. I used to have something I would share a lot of times is, you go into a church and during the worship time, like, some people's hands are in the air and they're singing, right? Other people are zero to no expression. Well, who in that room has a quote closer relationship, or whose relationship with God is more authentic? Well, somebody might say,
The
"Oh, it's the
hands up, man.
it's a," and I'm like, it's a personality profile.
Yeah.
Like, like, depends on how you're wired and how you know, how you're moved in that way. And so I think kids are, and I think sometimes, like, there's certain personalities and certain kids that are going to gravitate to this idea of what God is and who he is and press in. And then there's other ones that are going to be like, man, like, like my, couple of my boys, man, they would do worship music every morning, and it was like chapel, and it's so beautiful because I'm the dad in the back, like, watching. My boys hate chapel. So it's like, does that mean that they don't love God? No, it's just they're kids. It's like,
Yeah.
let them be kids. Like, let them fumble into adulthood not even knowing what this thing means. And I don't want to make you feel like you gotta pray, you gotta read your
Yeah.
Bible, you gotta memorize scripture. Like, so if anything, but this is in the after box mentality, because when you're in the box and there might be people listening, you
Yeah.
want to essentially control every aspect of their faith and their relationship with God. And you want to make sure that they're, pretending to be the perfect Christian kids at church on Sunday and perfect Christian kids at, it's like, dude, just be a kid. It's like no
Yeah.
different than somebody who's forcing their kid to play sports, but now they're
Yeah.
forcing them to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, because it's not about them. It's about me. Then it's
that's right.
about how does that reflect me? If he's playing well on the field, if he is putting his hands up, then that looks good on me. Then they're gonna
Yeah.
say Todd Pinkston, Charlie Lima, God, what an all-star dad.
So
And
a long way of saying that
yeah,
is, man, I'm just letting them, whatever. And
yeah,
again, not, but also it's like, hey, like, that doesn't mean I'm not in my own way. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so, I think you asked family, and then you asked marriage, and then you
yeah,
asked business. I'll do business and then I'll do marriage. But in the business, I even told my team this, because our core values at the gym are family, fitness, faith. And we had like almost a beginning of year planning, goal setting meeting. And a lot of times when I do that, I like to reemphasize the values. And I even told them, I said, faith is something I'm pressing into more. in and how it applies to the gym, because one thing that I know that faith has done for me in the gym in terms of how it's complemented that is because it allows me to not try to do it all myself. And that for me has been very healthy because I'm the type of person that takes full responsibility, 100% of the pressure, and 100% of the outcome is on me. And
Yeah.
faith has been the thing that has taught me, hey, no, like, let it go, right? And so for me to press on faith and double down or triple down or give it more to God means don't carry it all, like that's it. It's a subtle way of me saying that, like, hey, that's how I'm living this out as it applies to the gym. Because, hey, to grow this thing or to do this next year or to set these goals, I'm not going to put the pressure on myself. It's like Dave Ramsey. I love when I went to Entre Leadership. He says, work like it all depends on you, but pray like it all depends on God. And so it's like, it doesn't mean that I'm just not doing all that I can, but I'm just not, like, my prayer for myself and my desire for myself is like to truly surrender to God with that.
Yeah.
And I have to remind, like, I'm saying out loud because I'm reminding myself literally right now to do that. Because, when you're growing something, as you're stretching and you're doing what I said earlier that entrepreneurs do, man, it requires an immense amount of stretching and flexing. And, when you put all that on yourself, that's when you end up, and I've been there, super stressed,
Yeah.
trying to do it all yourself, and it's not good for anybody. So in my marriage, I think the I think so much of this new season is, and this has been huge for me, and I don't know how, if it applies to this spiritual side, but it's like letting her be her.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is my nature was to want to help her, to want to fix as much as I could. And I know you're familiar with, like, every husband that's
Oh yeah.
basically ever just tried to fix, but it wasn't even that. It was almost to a point that was like unhealthy, right? It was like, and part of that nature comes with a judgment that you have towards her because you're thinking she needs to be better or take care of things in ways that you would do differently. And man, I would say, like, man, the last 3 years have really taught me, number one, like, her growth is on her. It's not on me. And and that goes in all areas. And to allow her to navigate her own life without coming and fixing everything and trying to worry. It's like, if her and my daughter are having, butting heads, I'm out. Like, when I say I'm out, it's not like I'm leaving. I'm not in there. I'm not saying it because it's like, I think my nature before was trying to rescue, fix, solve, and don't make it. I'm not making it sound like I'm completely absent, because
Yeah.
obviously,
Sure.
but I think in this, and what's beautiful in this new, we'll call it, season, is I'm just admiring her growth as a person.
Yeah.
I'm watching her become more of who she is. And it was almost like maybe all that I was doing before was actually, people would call it, not people, but the term would be like enabling, right? Like, there's aspect to that that's like, I feel like my new uh, uh, approach to a marriage is like two people walking side by side for a lifetime, and you're not trying to change or fix or tell the person next to you what they need to do or how they need to be. And if they fall, you're not picking them up. You're literally just waiting. You're not going to keep on walking, in other words,
Yeah.
because they need to get up. And that's like, my nature was like, pick them up, carry them as long as I had to, because
Mm.
that was the Ephesians 5 thing to do. And no, it's just wait.
Mm-hmm.
And if they say, help me up, grab their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, not just like,
Yeah.
you know. And so it's like, and then when they get up and they start walking, if they walk slow, walk slow. And they'll do the same for you. You know what I mean? It's like, so much of this is like her taking care of herself, me taking care of myself creates something beautiful together.
Yeah.
And we've been married 17 years this month.
Dude, what I hear in that is freedom. Like if Charlie Lima of old had the whole gym on his shoulders, his kids' growth and their success was on his shoulders, and his wife's growth was on his shoulders, then all you're trying to do is manage the world. Like all you can think about is the weight on your shoulders, the things you have to care for, and of course, and then that question weaves in of like, is this all there is? Like, am I just gonna carry this weight for 80 years and then die? And it feels like you've shed weight, and not in a bad way. And I mean, you said it a couple times of like, hey, I'm not saying I don't do anything, because in sometimes it does sound like that, but I know exactly what you're saying, because I have felt that. And whether we hit that end of like, for me, I look in the mirror sometimes and I'm like, dude, who do you think you are that you have the answers to all of Aaron's problems? Like, what? You're not God, dude. You can't even figure yourself out. But, and so it's like, okay, I'll let go. And it's freeing.
Yes.
So what is that doing for you on the inside? Like, and I'm curious, did jumping into Ironman and like kind of another level of like physical training, going after something big, did that coincide at all with some of the stuff?
So the reason I signed up for the Ironman, which was right a few months before I reached out to you, was because at that moment, I went through the most trying, difficult time of my life. And for me, there was a couple guys who had asked me if I wanted to do that Ironman in June. And I had done a half like 15 years prior, or no, I'm sorry, like 11 years prior. And I told them, oh, no, it's not the right time. And then August of 22, I said, I'm going to do it. And mainly because I wanted a physical representation of the emotional challenge I was going through. And to me at that moment, the Ironman was like the hardest like physical challenge. So I'm like, I poured in. I had 12 weeks, and dude, there was bike sessions that were like yelling, I'm screaming, crying, running, same. Like that 12 weeks, man, was just. And so when I did the Ironman and I crossed the finish line, number one, you're exhausted, but
Yeah.
wasn't that I was out of that, because that was November, and I think you and I were talking about doing something in December, because I was still I was still hurting. That's the thing, right? It wasn't like the Ironman cured me, and that's the thing about, like, you're not gonna externally fix your internal problems, right? And so, however, what's beautiful about that, and I think this is where the gift of fitness that came way before carried me through that, right? Like, because it helped me with my hurting. It helped me with my, like, I needed an outlet. I needed a way, there's this, I have a playlist on Spotify that I made. It's like 9.5 hours of worship music. Oh my gosh. I listened to that playlist every training session. And the beauty of worship music is it's just scripture, really. Like, if you start listening to these songs, they're just singing scripture to you. And I remember there's still certain songs that basically are like reminders of that season. And the next Ironman simply happened because somebody invited me, because they were going to do it with a group of guys, to do it. And so I did it because I told myself after Panama City, November 22, I was like, I'm never doing it. Like, Alicia asked me the next day, she's like, you doing one? I was like, no. I was like, this is it. I'm like, that's it.
One and
I'm done.
done.
And then I did the other one in September. And then I found out that there is and I'm getting somewhere with this because there is something cool that's going to come out of this. There's a program called the Legacy Program, where if you do 10 Ironmans in 12 years, you get invited to Kona for the World Championship. So then I thought, man, that's pretty cool. I've done two. I was 40 when I did my first. I was like, I'll do one a year. And what I've kind of further learned about that next year was something called misogi. Have you heard of that? It's like a
Yeah. Yeah.
Japanese principle philosophy. And it's
Did
like,
you learn about it from Comfort Crisis, or where'd you hear about it?
No, I heard about it from Jesse Itzler.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
is a guy that, bless you. He was an author, kind of
Yeah.
an entrepreneur. And I heard him talking about it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, this is cool. And it's do something so hard one time that
Yeah.
it influences every other day of your life. And so Ironman has kind of been that for me. So it's
Hmm.
like, there's no other day of the year that I'm pushing like I am on that day.
Yep.
But it influences every other day because, number one, it's like, man, there's like, it's funny, I'll do a CrossFit workout. I'm like, this is nothing like an Ironman. Like, there's a whole nother way of thinking when you've pushed yourself for that long and you've come to that physical pain, and knowing what you have in you, that are someone that will push through it.
Yep.
And so that's become part of that.
Yeah. That's rich, dude. How do you feel like spiritually? You said, you made the statement, you can't do something hard externally that fixes you internally. Like, we know that. Yet, there is something that correlates between a physical challenge and what's going on emotionally. Like, something about it brings it to the surface. I don't know what it is. Like, but what have you found? How did the Ironman help in the healing process of what you were going through?
I just think it gave me an outlet. Like, it gave me a channel to express, I had already built up my passion for fitness, so, I like to say it right now, like, you know, I, I'll get ready for an Ironman in like 10 to 12 weeks because I'm in Ironman shape year round, right? Even though I'm not biking, and,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's all it is more volume, And so what it did though, is it gave me this channel. It gave me this way to, you can do that channel. Let's be honest, for a lot of people can be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Like when you're going through difficult times. And for me, it just increased the volume on fitness, which was already a channel that I subscribed to, and a phenomenal way for me to, like, today, like, I started doing sauna cold plunge like a year and a half ago. That's like a channel for me to, just to manage, not that I'm in that same season, but just as, every day you're going to have curveballs.
Stuff.
You could get 10 guys on the mountain every week if you wanted to. You pull 10 strangers, take them to the mountain, you're going to find
Yeah.
out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, all the Ironman did was it increased the volume and the frequency of that channel that I already subscribed to. But you said something that made me think, and I don't know if it was a question, but external, internal. One thing that I can tell you for certain is you have to explore the depths of who you are when you're in those times. And that won't come from an external scripture. That won't come from an external sermon. That won't come from an external person's prayer. Like when you are in the depths of the trial or the stuck, or you have to go internal, like deep in, not your faith, not your God, I mean, like sometimes you say that, and I say that just not, again, not because I'm against those things, but you like, hey, I got to get all this out of here and figure out, why am I here?
Yeah.
Why did I respond the
Yeah.
way that I responded? You know, my
Good.
saying is 10 people go through what I went through. I responded differently than 9. Why? And why is not anything to do with God. It's to do with you and how you relate to the world, how you relate to people, how you receive, how you give, how you function, how you think. You know, a therapist would call that your it's a word for basically your orientation, your origin story.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what they would say, you know, and but when you're in that, you gotta you gotta work in that, because again, that's not gonna come from, like, you can pray and ask God to help you find
Sure.
that, but it's
Sure.
like, it's not gonna, so that's the stuff that is heavy.
Yeah.
That is the stuff that's the tears.
Yeah.
That is the stuff that, but ultimately, man, when you do that work, you do come out knowing yourself better, loving yourself better, more capable to move on and move forward, right?
Absolutely, dude. Dude, that's
Yeah.
that's rich. And that's powerful. It's like the bumper sticker theology. Like no bumper sticker is going to go inside and heal your marriage. And if anything, I think it just does more harm because it makes it seem like it should be easier than what it actually is. And what you're talking about is pulling it back and looking and being honest about what's actually there. Like, dude, I'm pissed off today. Like, I'm frustrated. Like, man, I, I,
Yep.
I, I wish I wasn't here. I mean, all those things that we feel like we shouldn't say, we say them, and then there's freedom in it. Then you get to
Yes.
start to see, like, why is that? Like, what is
Yeah.
going on that's making me feel that way? And then that's where the Lord comes in and can do actual healing work because
Yeah.
we're not pretending anymore.
Yeah.
Dude, that's good. I love it, man. you're in some rich growth times, dude. It's fun.
Yeah.
Tell me what's next. Like what's on the horizon for Charlie Lima?
So
What
I
do you
have
dream
two
about?
two two Ironmans this year.
Two in 1 year?
Yeah.
Oh no, you might have to train for 13 weeks to get ready for that, bro. Yeah. Oh,
No, I'm in a season of one. I'm liking to the physical challenge, that just to test my body and to
yeah.
kind of see what it's capable of, because I feel like, I mean, I've worked out for
Yeah.
now 25 years, but I'm in this season of like, man, I like pushing it. I like kind
Yeah.
of in a meaningful way, like in a
Yeah.
purposeful way. So that's, big. My kids are at ages, man, and I'm always reminded of, this is a short season. And, even this past weekend on the retreat I was on, I just want to throw the football with them 10% more than I did last year. I already do that, but it's like, I want to walk back to my daughter's bedroom 10% more than I did last year and sit on her bed and let her talk about whatever, right? So it's not like every day, and it's not like I want to do it 30 times a month or whatever, or some quotient. It's just like, I already do that, but I want to do that just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And,
Hmm.
you know, the gym is exciting because it's, there's a lot of opportunities there, but I don't necessarily have this, like, I know kind of what I want to do, but here's what I definitely don't want to do. I don't want to do anything at the expense of my peace and my rest and my stress. Like, I've done that so many times, and that's always been like at my expense, and it's just not loving towards myself when I basically set these giant agendas. It'd be like doing the Ironman when I'm in pain after 13 miles. It's like, don't
Yeah.
do it. Like, just
Yeah.
do the half or do the Olympic.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't want the gym or my entrepreneurial nature to essentially grow at my expense from a stress and a peace, right?
Yeah.
And there is a healthy way to do that. Like, I can definitely tell you I've done it in an unhealthy way. But so those are kind of some big things that I would say are coming up.
That's awesome. Dude, thanks for taking some time today to chat, dude. I
Of course.
Brother, I'm always encouraged by you right now, probably more than ever. I mean, seriously,
Oh,
I admire your drive, the way you get after stuff. You love people really well. Like, dude, I just remember going and working out at your gym, just like the way you bounce around and care for folks. Like, everybody feels cared about around you. Everybody feels challenged when you're around you. And also, you're living it out. Like, you're getting after it. The words that embody your culture at the gym are the words that embody you as a leader, and people see that in you. And so, thanks for taking some time today. Thanks for being real here. I know it's a risk sometimes to be real and share what is actually going on beneath the surface. But I think it's a gift, and that's what I love about you. So, thanks for your time today, brother. Thanks for being on and sharing.
thanks for asking the questions, man, and caring. I appreciate that.
You got it. Appreciate you, man.